Let's start with getting a little bit of your background. How did you become a financial advisor? And then walk me through where the business is today.
Yeah. So background 2009 is when I started doing taxes. So that was the entry into this financial world. And it was the mundane, anything you'd expect someone their first year of working out of college to do in a tax firm. That's what I was doing. So it was a lot of data entry. It was a lot of e-filing, the electronic filing with the IRS, a lot of just staring at the screen for 10 hours a day during tax season in 2009. That's where I got my start. And then it progressed to actually understanding the tax side a little bit more, and then actually talking with clients a little bit more, and then seeing the interaction between investment and tax and how it's all related, and seeing some of the things that happened during tax season that they did the previous year with their advisor and what problems it caused during tax season, like some of the surprises that sometimes happen when people don't think about the tax impact of things. So that was the entry point into taxes. Also, that first year after tax season was done, I started helping an advisor who had mutual clients with that tax firm. And that's where I really got to see the interplay between the two and how important it was to get that coordination between tax and investment for clients and the impact that it made. So for some reason, that was exciting. There was also one thing that happened where it made me realize that this money stuff is more important than I thought, or it was held in higher esteem in people's minds than I thought it was, and how important a tax person, like a boring old tax person or a boring financial planner, how important that role is in someone's life. Because the distinct memory I have is, again, probably hour 10 on April 10th or one of those dates close to the end of filing date, and staring at the screen so long, totally brain dead. And someone called in and they were all worried, and they were saying, "Oh, Mr. Zoller, is my tax return filed? I haven't seen if it was. Is it done?" And I clicked a couple buttons. I'm like, "Yeah, Mrs. So and so, it looks like it's all done and filed, and you're good to go." And then you could just feel the weight lifted off her shoulders, and she was like, "Oh, Mr. Zoller, thank you so much." I didn't do anything, by the way. I was just clicked a couple buttons, and she said, "Thank you." And she said, "You're like a calm island in the middle of a stormy sea." And at the time, I was like, "What are you talking about?" But after that stuck with me because it was an odd thing to say, but that was the first experience of, wow, this stuff is important. That kind of felt good, delivering something which I really had no part of, but I wanted to do more of that. So that's how I got started. Then I started doing investment stuff, helping that one advisor more, got licensed. And then right now it's Tim and I. We own Streamline Financial, and we've been growing pretty rapidly since 2020, which this podcast is about, why we started seeing the shift that year. Yeah, that's the
So, te-
best.
so tell me about Tim. He's a partner. How did you guys connect? How do you run the business? How do you divide up the duties as a partner?
Yeah, great question. So we've been working together for 15 years. So when I started helping the advisor, it was Toby, and then it was Tim, and then I was the third person to join the team. And since then, Tim and I have been working together, and we've figured out you start doing everything and anything, right? You're the phone person, you're the form filler outer, you're the compliance person, you're all the things. And then you start to segment or differentiate. Oh, I really like doing this part, or I'm really bad at this and I keep messing up. And then we started to segment the tasks that we were working on. We were all advisors, we were all helping people and clients. But then when it comes to the working on the business part, Tim had a real knack. One of his skills or strengths is it's called maximizer. And it's taking something that is maybe 70 or 80% done, and then really making it even better and getting it to 100%. And kind of, we might have a process that's pretty good. He would take that and just get it so much further. So it was like he really streamlined, the bad pun intended, but he made all the internal stuff so much better, and a lot of the operations and processes so much better with the way that his mind works. Me, I would say did everything and anything, was a good advisor. But one of the things that was what I was better at, probably, and wanted to study and learn more, was around communication. And how do you take complex concepts and then talk in a normal way so someone could understand it and it could stick and click? And then that was helpful for being a financial advisor, right? Because if it could stick and if they could remember it, they're more likely to take the advice and move forward. And hopefully it's good advice, which it was. So that's how it started to shift. And currently, Tim, I'd say, he's making sure Streamline runs appropriately. Me, I'd say I'm more on the external side, attracting a lot of people to Streamline by sharing some of the stuff we're doing within the business and sharing it with clients on YouTube and social media and things like that. And that's been getting a lot of interest.
I'm going to stereotype here. And the stereotype is that tax people are not typically your front-facing communication YouTube stars. So were you miscast as a tax person and you're really like this front-facing video star, or are you both of those? Or how do you think your tax background and analytical side has really helped inform you on the communication and the front-facing marketing side?
When I was doing tax, I was working with my dad. It was dad's company. And I would, not the first season, but the next season, I would join the meetings, watch him do what he did. I'd watch this advisor, Toby, do what he did. And it was so much non-financial talk, right? Every advisor knows that, yes, you do have to focus on the numbers and the financial side, but there's all these other parts of life that are brought up and discussed. And that part was probably the part that attracted me the most, was like, okay, so they really want to achieve this stuff, the non-financial stuff over here, but they're coming to you and you have to be credible and good at what you do with the numbers. So they need that trust first with the numbers, with the tax things, and then they'll trust you with so much more. And the sort of conversations I saw early on were amazing. You're talking about faith, or you're talking about, should I buy this type of piano or this type of piano? And they were bringing this up because one costs a certain amount of money, the other one costs this. And it's why, what are you talking about? It's another conversation of like, why are you asking me what piano to buy? You're the artist. But it was just a great look at like how much weight they put on the financial person, a good one, and how much they value the advice. I think it started, back to your question, I think that I was a good advisor. I was probably better at speaking and speaking their language, translating the complicated to normal talk. And I think very early on, back in 2013, we were doing an offsite, Tim and Toby and myself. And I remember saying, I have a desire to like share this with a lot of people, but I didn't have the experience. But there was somewhere in the back of my brain, there was something about sharing information with a lot of people and not just one-to-one. Both are good. Transformation happens one-to-one, but there was also something about sharing with a lot of people. So I don't know. I think there was always an interest and a curiosity. And then I didn't learn that until 2019, 2020, when I actually tried doing the YouTube stuff.
And so where are you at today in terms of the business, like number of employees, number of advisors, number of clients, however, assets, however you want to measure that?
Yeah. So we've got 8 team members, Tim, myself, 2 lead advisors, Luke and Sean. All new clients are going to them. We've got another support advisor and tax expert, EA expert, the tax planning guy, Matt. And then we got a team of client service associates who are really the all-stars. Whenever we ask for feedback from clients, the most positive feedback we get are from those 3 people, Carolyn, Caitlin, and Melissa, which is always fun to see. But so the business now, we're, for assets, over 450, or last I checked was over 450 million. And clients is about 250 households is who our clients are. And because of the last 4 years, we've had to try to figure out how to, we can't hire that fast, right? We're slow growers when it comes to hiring advisors. So we've had to get more and more selective with who we're bringing on as clients. So that level of client in terms of assets has kept growing and growing over the last 4 years, especially.
So walk me through the marketing and how did you ultimately land on the YouTube strategy, which seems to be working pretty well for you these days?
When we were in 2019, Tim and I, we had a pretty good team, a great team actually, and that allowed us to get some stuff off of our plates, whether it was client service or the prep or the post-meeting follow-up and all that. And that's when we decided, Tim and I, in the summer, was like, let's look at the marketing. Let's start to expand a little bit more. Before the previous 10 years, it was CPA referrals and it was client referrals, which is pretty common, but that's not that predictable. You can do predictable things when you have conversations with clients that might lead to referrals, but we never really knew, you couldn't really map it out that well. At least we couldn't, for growth, how fast we were going to grow. So we started to explore what are the other methods of of growing or attracting clients to you or prospects. And I learned there were 5. There's something nobody really wants to do. Some are good at it, but I didn't want to do it. It was cold outreach, which involved, I would say, seminars. I would lump it in there, cold calling or door knocking or things like that. So there's really only 4 left. CPA referrals was one, and then client referrals was the other. So we were testing those, but then we never tested paid marketing and we never tested content marketing. So I made an effort, and Tim made an effort. Let's try paid and content. We couldn't figure out the paid side. The content side was something I enjoyed because it wasn't that much work to maybe help one person that week, or think about a story, something that you did for somebody that week, and then share that story with different names, confidential things, obviously, share that online with somebody else. Because the thought was, if there's someone who received help from me this past week, I bet there's at least 5 other people, or 10 or 100 or 1,000 that would find some value in that as well. Maybe it's a story about, there's endless stories, but that's what we wanted to try. So we started sharing on LinkedIn. That was the goal. Share some written posts, do 1 a week, spend 1 hour a week. So we're going to carve out 1 hour a week and write something. And that was the max. There were no results from this. So we didn't want to spend 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week. We wanted to do 1 hour. We tried that. We started taking those text posts and reading them to the camera and making really bad videos. And shortly after that, about 3 months after, someone came in and was like, I feel like I know you already. I saw your LinkedIn videos. They'd never met us before, but they felt like they knew us. They didn't become a client. They weren't a client, but that was enough to be like, oh, wow, this is something, right? It might be working. So we continued. And then May of 2020, when we were all sitting in our basement or home office or stuck at home, forced to be at home, I was looking at social media a lot more. I noticed my screen time was going up during that time period. And the thought came to me of, I bet everybody else is doing this too. I bet people are watching a lot more YouTube than normal. So that was the goal. I had 2 extra hours in the day because I wasn't driving into the office. And I set up the iPhone camera in this basement and maybe a box light, and started recording some things to that iPhone and putting it on YouTube in May of 2020. And it was slow going, maybe 1 view or 5 views. And from May of 2020 until December of 2020, we went from 0 subscribers on Streamline Financial YouTube channel to a grand whopping 70 subscribers. So it's not that great a growth. There were no people calling in. There were no results from it. But over that period, 1 video a week, I was slowly getting better. It all either works on you, makes you better, or it works for you and delivers what you're hoping for, which is prospective clients. And it was working on me. I made a deliberate effort to just get better and better, try to communicate via camera. And then in December of that year, 2020, I figured a few things out accidentally. One I'll bring up next, which is the mistake I made for the first 10 months. But 1 video took off. That was actually posted 2 months prior. It was in September or October. And then in December, for some reason, the algorithm noticed it and people watched it longer than the others. And it did really well. And in 1 weekend, there were 20 people that had reached out for a call, which was incredible. That's like a whole year's worth of all the previous from 2019 prior. So that was exciting. That got me even more excited to continue getting better at this. That one thing I'll bring up, one of the mistakes is under the YouTube videos, I was trying to get people to go to a call, to book a call. And that was a mistake. That's a big step, right? What I added in December was call it a lead magnet, or it was a free quiz, the how much do I need to retire quiz, where they filled out all their information. I got it, sent in an email to me, and then I delivered a personal 3-minute video to them. And 25% of those people would reach out and say, oh, let's have a call. Let's have a real intro call about this. That was a big shift to the success of the YouTube channel. So I know I'm throwing a lot out there, but hopefully some of it's sticking.
And I'm going to take this out of order because we're going to talk about the YouTube here more in just a moment, but I want to go back to something that you said here a couple of minutes ago that I want to make sure we don't lose. And you said you tried paid marketing or paid advertising and you couldn't make it work. So tell me, what did you try? What didn't work? And do you envision ever perhaps going back to that again and trying that again, but in a different way?
So the thing that we tried was it was Facebook ads at the time to grow the email list and hopefully turn that email list into calls, first calls, prospect calls. That we probably got about 90 people. And the cost back then, it was less expensive. I think 2019 or 20, it was maybe $3 to $5 per person to get on the email list. But we didn't have the whole system set. There's other ways to do it. And I know there's actually, I'm friends with Ron Bullis of LifeWorks Advisors, and he grew his whole business on Facebook, now Meta ads. And he's got a whole system to get them from cold to warmer to ready to go. So there are ways to do it. We just didn't maybe invest the time or the effort into learning that and applying it in our business. And maybe I enjoyed the content side more than the paid. I'm not exactly sure why it failed, but I think it was just the lack of effort from us to learn it.
Now, do you envision at some point in the future, perhaps trying to open up a new marketing channel and perhaps doing paid, or there's a lot of these lead generation services out there where you pay them for X number of leads, that sort of thing. So do you envision ever trying that again?
Right now, no, because we have to turn away a lot more people. We get 60 to 100 people a month reaching out, looking for an introductory call. And we've got two main advisors. So there's a capacity issue there. We are hiring, by the way, any advisors listening, we're hiring advisors. So right now, no, we wouldn't want to do that because we just have to turn away a lot of people. That doesn't feel good. In the future, I think it's a great idea. If someone's evaluating, should I do content marketing? Should I do paid marketing? And you're an advisor. I've heard that if you've got time and you don't have any money, do content marketing because you've got the time to create things. If you've got the money, but you don't have the time, figure out the paid marketing. And I know there's ways to do it right. I know, I don't know about you, Steve, but on LinkedIn, once a week or once a day, I'll get the pitch from a paid marketing expert of, hey, you want 20 people per week on your calendar? It seems like there's so much out there. I don't know. I would trust Ron and what he's doing. And he's actually got a course on this coming out. I would follow that than anything else probably, because it's just an advisor who actually did it and applied it and it works. That's the best way.
Excellent. All right. So let's really dig in here to YouTube, and I'm going to share my screen here, and I want to show your YouTube channel, and let's walk through this a little bit just so people get a sense that are watching the video of this on YouTube. Talk about what we're seeing here. We've got your YouTube page here. And first of all, let's just look at the banner image that you have there. How much thought did you put into that? How relevant is it to have an interesting banner image at the top there?
Yeah, that has been there, I think, since, if not May, then June of 2020. And that was a $5 person on either Fiverr or Upwork or one of those things where they created that and it stuck. So there's one thing that, if you don't know this about me, and nobody does, I'm not a design heavy person. There's so much I don't notice when it comes to design and look and feel. There's other people better than me. There was some thought that went behind it, but there's no magical thing there. We did want people to know, we always talk about the 3 types of plans that you need to have for starting retirement planning, and it's the income plan, the tax plan, and the investment plan. So that's represented there with those three words. But yeah, I wouldn't say a lot of thought is put behind that banner.
So I'm highlighting, I don't know if people can see this on the video or not, but you have 70,200 subscribers to your YouTube channel, which is phenomenal. You've got 271 videos. And you said a little bit earlier that from May of 2020 to December of 2020, you went from 0 to 70 subscribers. And then you had one video that hit. Now, I don't know, did you say what that video was, what the topic of that video was?
That was one related to a scenario where I was showing e-money, and it was, I can't remember, but it was dollar amounts, which was having this much, this is the plan. Is there enough to retire if I spend this much? People love those sorts of case studies, those scenarios, because there's a lot of people who are similar or close to they have this much and can they do it? So they want to see the walkthrough. They want to see the plan before going to an advisor. That was the one that took off. It took about 2 or 3 months for it to get warmed up, or however it works with the algorithm. And then it took off from there. But yeah, that was one of the most viewed right now. It's pretty crazy because YouTube's the only platform out there that treats each piece of content like its own asset that continues to deliver, call it income or results or leads, even 4 years later. So that one, if you organized it by videos and popular, it'd be one of the top 10 videos that still is delivering clients to us.
And I'm going to show that here in just a moment here, some of your most popular videos. But what I also find really interesting here is I had James Knoll on an earlier podcast as well, and another big YouTube star. He had a very similar story to yours in the sense that he started YouTube, put some videos up, got no traction, and stopped. And then a number of months later, all of a sudden, he started getting some notifications like, oh, so-and-so subscribed to your channel, did this, did that. And he's like, what's going on here? And it was an older video that all of a sudden got life through the algorithm and ended up getting thousands and thousands of views. So is that one of many different ways that someone can become a hit on YouTube? Is you get one video that for some reason goes viral? Is that sort of the beginning, or are there other ways that you can build the YouTube subscriptions here?
Yeah, I would say that is one way, but there are also, I've talked to a lot of, because of the success of this channel, I've talked to a lot of advisors who have been at it for a while with little results, or who are thinking about getting into it with YouTube specifically. And there have been different routes. Very few, not many have a knock the lights out video. And it's more about consistency. And because they're speaking, the thing that they did that a lot of other people do, the ones that are successful, they're speaking to one person all of the time. As advisors, we could call it a niche or whatever you want to call it. There's all sorts of different people out there with different problems and pains around money and finances. So the ones who could speak to one person and one core problem, for us, it's pretty retirement, pretty general. But after 10 months or so of every video being retirement, you look at the demographics on YouTube analytics, and it's 70, I believe 70% are over 55. So YouTube figured out, okay, this guy speaking about this, and that's who we're going to put the videos in front of, is over 55 people. I think there's different routes to do it. I think the main thing is you have to have something good to say, and then you have to learn how to say it well. So whether it's to a small audience of just bass fishermen, like that one advisor I've heard of, or if it's to a broad audience, you just have to say it well. And it might be slow going, but even you said 70 subscribers, that's where we're at now. When we were at 150 subscribers, that's when we saw consistent growth and consistent people reaching out. At the time, about one a week, way back when, and that was a lot. So you don't have to have thousands of subscribers to have success here. You just have to, you just have to say something. You just have to help people before you ever meet them. That's the key thing.
And I'm really interested in what makes one YouTube channel successful versus another one, which is mediocre. And so we're talking about advisors here. And if we have 10 advisors who are all delivering very similar content, who are all similar communicators in terms of their ability to communicate and educate, how much of the success do you think, and I don't know that this is measurable per se, but how much do you think the success of a channel is based on, again, assuming the content and delivery is equal, how much is based on the personality of the person delivering it? And I don't mean, oh, I'm a Tony Robbins raw guy or what have you, but just about the ability of the advisor to connect with that audience. And I guess that really goes into the communication piece, but how much is it the person themselves versus the content? Is there a way, or at least have an opinion on the relative importance of those two pieces?
That is a great question. And that's a hard one to answer. I think there are, when it comes to content, there's a framework I'll follow because, okay, here's the evolution of starting with zero. The goal was get one piece of advice or tip or something as quickly as I can. For instance, let's pretend it's a Roth conversion video. I wanted to say that as quickly, get to the point as fast as I could. So when someone Google's Roth conversion or YouTube's Roth conversion, whatever, then they'll see a 3-minute video of mine, and then they'll see an 8-minute video of somebody else's. So in the beginning, when there were 0 subscribers, that was the goal because they'll usually want the information faster. Now that we have 70,000 subscribers, there's a whole, call it an art to YouTube. That is, how do you keep someone engaged by the things that you're saying or showing them so that they'll want to stick around and watch a little bit more? There is this kind of science to it. And it's something I had no idea about in the beginning. In the beginning, it was just get to the point, deliver free value for as fast as I could. Now it's, how do you give them what they want early, and then how do you keep them engaged? So it gets a little bit complicated, Steve, but there's some science to it. So that might be part of it, Steve, I think, with the success of some versus the success of others. The ones who really want to study that game of YouTube engagement, those are the ones that are successful. Other than that, personality, all I think about there is I don't have any competition on YouTube because I am there is no other me, right? So some people are going to hate watching me because of how I sound or my tone or whatever it is, and they'll watch me once and never watch again because they don't like me. But then there's other people with personalities like mine or whatever it might be that will like it, and they won't take me and James. Some people are James all the way. Some people like me more than James, and there's no competition because we're just being ourselves. In the beginning too, honestly, I would think a lot of it has to do with your mindset around looking like a fool. Like, it's hard for a CFP who's been doing this for 15 years or 10 years at the time and being at the top of their, feeling like, oh, I know a lot, I'm a CFP and all this. And then to go back to the starting point of looking like a fool on YouTube and not knowing how to communicate and just having 0 views and like all of the negativity that comes with that, or the negative comments that come with it. So going back to the beginner's mind was a really important piece of this. And then also just thinking of it as a point of service versus trying to receive something. I had the point of mind of, I'm going to try to serve somebody that I'm never going to meet and probably will never reach out to me, and give them something helpful in these videos. That was a lot more motivating than, oh, I'm going to post this, I hope I get a lot of views and a lot of people reach out. Oh, nobody reached out. That would be demoralizing. So I went for the generosity track versus oh, I hope I get this stuff from it. That there's some psychological piece to that, I think, around the success. Yeah, there's one other thing too, and it has to do with my faith probably. And maybe you could tell with the generosity component. The algorithm is supposed to control everything. Maybe God controls the algorithm. And we had a heart to help people and give more than get something back. So maybe that's rewarded. Who knows? It's all a guess.
Now, and speaking of faith, are any of your videos infused with your faith, or do you keep it completely secular?
Yeah, there's a video, I think it's called like the 3 must-have assets or something like that, but it speaks of the financial assets, the intellectual assets, and then another type of asset that we have. So it's a little bit, maybe it is misleading where people are thinking investments and they get there, but that was a popular video. There's another one around how much is enough. If you're familiar with Ron Blue, he'll talk about that, or many people will talk about that concept. That did okay. There's also, I'll throw in verses and won't quote exactly where they are in scripture, but a lot of it has to do getting to retirement or anything with money. There's a lot of worry involved. There's ways to worry less about money. So I'll try to there's principles in scripture that are just laws of the world that work no matter what. So I'll try to throw those in some of the videos.
And I want to also go through the framework that you just mentioned here a moment ago. But before we get to that, I want to click on this about page here. So are you seeing this on the screen here?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So walk me through what you have here. You've got the about. Was there a lot of thought put into what you put here? I know we've got the disclosures that have to be there because you're a broker-dealer advisor. You've got the channel details here, which are very impressive here.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And the really crazy part is this year alone, we're over 4 million views. So half of those 8 are from the last 9 months. And there's a few things we did this year different than the other years. But this first part with the three parts is tax efficient withdrawal planning. That's on everyone's mind, investment planning and tax reduction planning. So back to the income plan, tax plan, and investment plan. That was our effort of trying to productize the thing that we did and make it a little bit more tangible to people. So you say that enough on these videos and people watch 8 videos or so in a row and they keep hearing the same thing. So when they call, a lot of the marketing or a lot of the sales is already done. They have an idea of, oh, you plan for people this way. And these are the things that I care about too, because taxes are on my mind. And also that feeling of, I'll share things of how people are feeling because I haven't retired, but we've helped hundreds of people retire. And we know that the feeling, you've got a retirement date here, and the stress level kind of increases a little bit as you get closer to this date, because even if you know you have enough, there's just this, you might know it's a wild thing to understand and comprehend of working for 30 years and then not, if you go cold turkey. Just sharing that on a video, it's like, oh, this person, Dave, understands how I'm feeling and is actually explaining the problem better than I can explain it myself. Now, when people believe that, they also believe you've got the solution, right? So it's just sharing how people are feeling. And then these are the 3 things that they care about. So they call and we say, hey, what's on your mind? They say, I'm thinking about retirement more. It's getting closer. I'm thinking about income planning, tax planning, and investment planning. So a lot of what we do is already done in these videos, if that makes sense. So that's the science behind that.
And you mentioned that about 4 million of these 8 million views came this year and that you did some things different this year. So what did you do different this year?
Okay, the first 2 years, it was me editing the videos. And we'll get into some of the software that I used and how to do that quickly. Because again, we didn't have a lot of time. So after 2 years, we hired I would say, felt like an expensive marketing team to take the videos, edit, get it on YouTube, and then split the content into different social media posts. And it was about it was 3% of our revenue is what that team costs. So about $60,000. And the amount of work that went into, they're a good marketing company, but they didn't understand the YouTube game in simple terms. So it was a lot of work helping them understand how to edit videos in a way that would be more engaging for people to watch. We dropped them last year, and then I just asked my assistant to learn a software called Descript, which is an editing software. And since the beginning of the year, all of the videos have been edited by her. And because we work closely together, she was able to understand what makes a good video. So she's not a marketing expert. She's not an editing expert or a video editor, but this tool, Descript, was one of the keys to the success, I'd say, because of the ease of use. That's what we did different. And then the other thing I did was spend more time on the prep. So before we hit record, was more time is going into the scripts. I told you about the template, saying certain things throughout the video, focusing more on that to make a video that's worth watching. That's what I spent a lot more time on, and it's resulted in good results this year.
Let's walk through a video here. And so I've just clicked on the video tab here. We've got the latest videos. We've got popular. So if I click on popular here, it shows, it looks like your most popular video was just from 3 months ago, 802,000 views. Second one, 444,000 views. Third one here, 381,000 views. At a high level, do you think there's any common thread among these most popular videos or any commonality that you see there?
Yeah. So the interesting thing about those first 3, they're all completely different. Here's why. The first one is, I guess what you'd say is like they call it a list video. There's 9 things that have been frequently said or what we learned from people and that made their life better in their 50s and 60s in retirement. So it's just a list. The second one is a case study, is a walkthrough, is a client example, and it's showing e-money. The first one, no e-money, no planning visuals or anything like that. The second one is e-money, showing and walking through the plan. The third one is something I've only done once or twice, and that I've heard it called newsjacking. So when there's a popular thing in the news, in this case, back in the spring, I think it was, one of the Dave Ramsey rants was around how you could take out 8% per year and no worries, just do that. That's the good withdrawal rate. So a lot of advisors on wherever X or LinkedIn or something were saying, be careful about this. So this was a kind of a reaction video to his thing. So all three of those completely different. So there's no theme there, Steve. The ones though, I will say, if you're an advisor and you're exploring this, or you're already doing some sort of video or want to do it, I would say the case study, that second video where you share a scenario of a client or a fake client. Obviously, you're being completely confidential here, changing it enough so people aren't off put by it. But doing that is very popular. Focusing on that. You'll see a lot of advisors out there actually doing this for every single video. And I didn't love it where it's, I've got this much, can I retire? Or I've got this much, can I retire? And it's a redundant thing, but those seem to be the videos that do well.
Now, you mentioned here about this idea of a template. So I'm happy to go through the template as much detail as you can here. So should we just pick one of these videos and you can point out some of the highlights of that particular video in terms of how you fit it into a particular template?
Yep. So the first part of the template is, and before the writing is done, and I would recommend scripting everything and not going off the cuff, but the packaging, meaning the title and the thumbnail, is the most important thing, because if you don't have something that is worth clicking on, then no one's going to see the good content inside and the helpful information that you're trying to give people. So
now, I hate to interrupt you, but this first one I'm looking at from one day ago, there's just you. There's no words on it at all, unlike almost all the other ones here that have words. So was that an experiment, or what's happening with that one?
So this one is currently in YouTube. Opened up split testing where you can put three thumbnails in there with different text on them. And whoever gets the highest click-through rate, whichever one gets clicked the most, after a few days, it'll pick that one. So this is currently in the test period. This was one of them. I'm testing 0 words with, and then other ones with words, 2 other ones with words. So that's why that's there right now. If you come back in a day or two, it'll be different, most likely, unless that's the winner, and that'll stay. But all the other ones you can see, or most of the other ones, and surprisingly, the one that has 800,000 views from a few months ago, that was a no words on the thumbnail one. And that's why I continue to test no words on a thumbnail, because I don't know if there's something there. It's all just—
it's just a picture of a good looking guy.
Yes. Or someone they pity. So they're like, oh, I'll give them a click. So anyways, the packaging and either the title and or the thumbnail needs to have some sort of cognitive dissonance. Not every title or thumbnail has this, but something that makes the person think, oh, is that true? And makes them think of questions in their head, like you do this subconsciously. The ideal order of successful, what's the ideal order of successful retirement? Or there's no ideal order. They might have these questions. And then this is part of the framework. Within the first 45 seconds or so, you'll want to answer one of those questions that comes to mind after looking at the title or thumbnail. There's one up there. Sorry, it's on a small screen for me, but I'm zooming in. Oh, one bad decision ruined his retirement. What? Really? Just one bad decision ruined it? So it's like people have skepticism when they see it, but there really was one thing. And this was the story of a person who, it was actually 2 people. It was during March of 2020, and there are 2 decisions. And one was focus on the gain, the gap in the gain idea, focus on the conservative bucket and how many years of withdrawals they had in the conservative bucket. The other one just focused at the big pie and saw the drawdown of whatever it was in his portfolio, 15% or so, and it was too much to handle. They were very similar situations because they had both retired that year. And then all of a sudden, this March of 2020 happens and they had to make a decision. One made a good decision, one made a bad decision. So that was that example. But this idea of curiosity, cognitive dissonance in the title and thumbnail is very important. So that's part of the template. And then the other thing, what I said already was there's going to be questions and skepticism in the person's mind. You want to answer that right away so that it fulfills the need that they're looking for. But then give them a few more reasons to stay. So you give them the answer and then you say, and if you're thinking about this or wonder what happened after this, I'm getting to that soon, or something. That's a bad way to say it, but that's part of the framework, those questions, those things those skepticisms that people have. That's a key part of it.
In terms of how you're actually communicating that, you're not going to have like just one shot where it's you talking straight into the camera for 4 minutes. You're going to have jump cuts. You're going to have stuff popping up on the screen. How do you think about that aspect of it rather than just being a talking head? We want to see a lot of movement, or do you want to see a lot of movement going on in the video?
Yeah. I always like to think of like the people who are just starting, because that's the majority of advisors. Just starting, Descript was key because of the jump cuts, right? Actually, Steve, my script was here and it was 3 minutes long. And it's today we're going to be talking about Roth conversions. And then I'd pause and look down at the next line, read it to myself, and then say, and the important thing here is to remember blah, blah, blah. And then I'd pause and look down. And what Descript does is you click one button and then it makes it all one fluid video, right? Get rid of the pauses is the button. And the thing that helped for me was zoom in, jump cut, and then zoom out, jump cut. That's enough movement. The nice thing about retirement audience is that they have a little bit longer attention span than a 20-year-old who's watching a Mr. Beast video and needs to have flashy stuff happening every 3 seconds. People who are older have a little bit more of attention span and they're going to pay attention better. So that's helpful. But I think the jump cuts and the zoom in, zoom out was helpful. And then once I figured out, I've got horrible handwriting, but I'll often hook up my iPad and use Notability and try to show images or draw pictures, because have you ever seen Simon Bowen or had him on the podcast? The guy who is the visual expert. He was on Brad Johnson's podcast one time, but he says when you draw people in, and how important is that with virtual meetings with clients via Zoom or doing a video? When you draw, they pay attention a little bit more and it makes it feel like you're in the same room a little bit. So I started doing that. Even though my writing is just horrible, for some reason, I think it adds to the video and helps the visual stick a little bit. So that's a big piece of it now.
And so what are some additional aspects of the template?
Here's a overarching 3 words I'll try to think about as I'm coming up with the idea for the video. Is it big, right? Is it a big idea or a big claim? Is it easy? The financial stuff can be so complicated. Is it easy enough that anybody can do it? And then is it new, right? Now, a lot of the stuff we're talking about isn't new, but that's in my mind is it a new way to think about something or a new concept or a new story that just happened that's helpful? So very important. You've probably heard this, if they're not going to watch the first 10 seconds or 30 seconds, they're not going to watch the rest of the video. So the first 30 seconds, having they call it a hook or something that's interesting right at the start. And it's either a question hook, like how much should you convert in a year? Today, we're going to go over Roth conversion strategies and show you a few examples. That's an example of a question hook. Another one is a statement hook, where there maybe is a little bit of I don't want to say like a shock or surprise or something like I'm going to share a story of how one client was able to convert up to $100,000 and pay 0 tax on that. And that was when he was giving his business away, part of the business. And that was the story. So like that first statement is like a little bit of a shock. What? $100,000 pay 0 tax? So they stay engaged. And then there's a story hook. Maybe that was also similar to the one I just said. So that's the hook. And then the setup, which is picking those 3 questions that someone may have after looking at your title and your thumbnail and listing the 3 questions. So Roth conversion video. Hey, so we're going to go over what that client did, why he was able to pay less tax or 0 tax. And then one of the mistakes that we'll often see people make when they're doing Roth conversions. Okay, they want to, now that's in their head, they're open loops in their head. They want to stay and listen to those answers. Then answer the first question right away, their burning desired question right away, so that you're not just stringing them along. Like a lot of YouTube videos people get fed up. If there's one answer you want to give and you take a long time to get there, you could have done it within the first minute. So you want to give it to them early and then share the other stuff later. So that's the framework. There's a lot that goes into it. I'm trying to see other big things, but if you just did those things, advisors who are listening, if you could do those, that will really help your videos.
One thing that I also like that you've done here is, so I'm clicking on this most recent one here, ideal order of successful retirement plans.
Mhm.
And you've got all this detail when I click the more button about the description of this particular video. So you've got some of your call to actions here, get the 5-minute retirement plan for free, popular retirement videos. But then you've got some detail here. Now, I've noticed on some of these, you actually have, let's see if you've got it here. No, not on this one, but you have the timestamp there. And you say, if it's 5 things to do blank, you'll say number one is here at 54 seconds. Number two is at 1 minute, 39 seconds. Number three is at 2 minutes and 54 seconds. So if someone, so you're telling what the 5 things are, and you're giving them the ability to just click right on that timestamp and go straight to that part in the video. So how conscious is that of an idea? Do you find that helpful? Is that important or not important?
Yeah, that's another one of those test things that we're trying to figure out. And most of the time, I would say we're not doing timestamps if the video is good. Because sometimes you want to give, it's like that idea of the medicine and the candy, right? You want to give the thing that the people want right away, but there's also really valuable things like we were talking about some of the principles or the purpose behind or the non-financial things. You want people to understand that too. And we found when we don't do the timestamps, people will watch longer. When we do the timestamps, you'll watch they call it a retention graph where it shows minute zero, 100% of the people are there. And then within 30 seconds, there's a big drop. And then when you do the timestamps, it's like a spike at that moment, and then a huge drop, and then another spike. And from what I think right now, no timestamps has been better for the success of the video. But again, I'm not sure of all the data there. It's just a test.
Talk to me about production here in terms of, you mentioned earlier that you've got a script. Walk me through your process from conceptualizing the video idea all the way through to we've actually got this published and it's live on YouTube.
In the beginning, I had a pretty good organization of each week what I was going to post and what the video would be. Over the last 4 years, I've now got a list of 100 ideas that are untouched right now. The initial thing is I've got all these ideas. It's scanning through and seeing what's the one that is most exciting. Because the one you're most excited about, you'll want to put more effort into and you want to do well. So it's picking whatever that one is. And then the writing process is the longest process because you're doing the thinking of the packaging first, and then you're thinking through the framework, which is a little more detailed than what we talked about, but there's a few steps there, and then you're writing it out. And it's like writing a short book or something like that, because you want to get this whole complete concept across in a 10-minute video. So you write it once, and then you think about those engagement things of, oh, where are people going to get bored with this? So then you add something in there. So the writing process, probably, if I had to break it into what percent of time for the whole thing, I think it's probably 60 or 70% of time is in the writing part. So it's like that idea of have you ever heard of like phototropic growth, like plants, and then gravitropic growth? They have to grow really deep first and get the root system before they do any sort of growing up towards the sun. It's like that root system with the writing where you're alone, nobody's looking at you, but it's like all the dirty work that you have to do. So it's mostly that. And then once you have something good, then the recording takes 10 to 15 minutes. It's one take usually. There's a teleprompter. We can get into the tech next, but there's a camera and a teleprompter that's just up there and it's reading the script. And I think over a few years, I've gotten better at reading from a script. So it seems more natural than in the beginning, but that's one of those practice things as well. So 70% writing, probably 10% is recording, and then 20 or 30, whatever it might be, is the editing afterwards. That's from the assistant. And then I'll do a final run through as well.
And do you like batch these? Do you record a bunch in one day, or how do you do that?
I'll try. A good goal would be 2 a day. And a lot of times it's writing in the morning sometimes, or finishing up a script in the morning and then thinking through the visuals after that and like drawing on the iPad and running through that a practice session. and then it's recording. Maybe that's part of the recording piece of this, but I would try to do 2 in a day. And that could take up maybe the recording, the final prep of making sure it's all right, and then recording. When I actually hit record, it really is 10 to 20 minutes, but all the lead up to that, maybe the whole thing, if I'm doing 2 videos, is like 90 minutes or 2 hours for just that day of recording. So 2 is a good goal for me. I know James does, I believe he does 4 for the month ahead of time, and then his team edits those. So that 2 is good for me, but I like the process of writing. I really enjoy it.
And in terms of the length of the videos, I'm looking at some of the recent ones here, 10 minutes, 14 minutes, 37 minutes. Looks like maybe that was a podcast interview, 16 minutes, 37 minutes, 14, 31, 10. How do you think about the length of the video?
Yeah. To start, like I said before, go as short as you can. And think about search. If people are searching, they'll click on the shorter video, even if it has 5 views. Not always. That's a guess. That's what I've heard does well, and that's what I did, and it seemed to do okay. But now try to get it to 8 minutes. 8 to 12 minutes is key, because there's this one of the factors, or one of the data points in YouTube analytics, is the length of watch time. So 1, it's the click-through rate, right? Is that title and thumbnail interesting? And then 2, how many minutes did they watch? If it's a 3-minute video and they watch 90% versus an 8-minute video and 50%, it's much easier to watch 50%. You'll get rewarded for the longer that they watch. So it's hard to get really long watch time on a 3-minute video. So you want to make it 8 to 12 minutes is what I found it seems to do well.
Because YouTube's interested in people watching, so more ads can be thrown in there and they can make more money. And ideally, you can make more money too.
Yes. Yeah. YouTube just wants people to stay on the platform as long. There's also a thing that I didn't do for a long time, but at the end of the video, recommending another one of your videos so that they stay on your channel. If that happens, that boosts the ratings as well for your own video.
And I know you didn't get into doing YouTube videos because you want to get the advertising revenue from the videos, but tell me, how does the advertising piece work? Do you even think about the advertising piece? Has that become a meaningful revenue stream for you?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I thought we want to have as the least amount of barriers in between a video and someone watching it. So I wanted to have 0 ads. I just want to click and watch. But then I learned that YouTube's already putting a video no matter what at the front, an ad at the front, and I think at the end. So at that point, it's okay, now I'm going to click the monetization button. And it's actually pretty good. Just the front and the back. I don't know. I don't probably want to reveal dollar amounts, but it's 5 figures and above. So that it could buy the camera if one breaks, or it could help us afford to buy something else marketing related. But yeah, it's not really an important number. It's not like, hey, what was the advertising revenue this month? How do we boost that? How do we get it more? We don't want to do that. It's actually part of the reason we're getting paid to grow our firm, to advertise our firm on YouTube.
You mentioned camera. So let's talk about the equipment. You also mentioned Descript that you're using for some editing. What are some other tools that you're using here? Descript
is probably, if I didn't have that in 2020, I probably wouldn't have done a YouTube channel, because it made the editing so fast and easy. So that was one. The camera at the time was an iPhone, and it was maybe a 7 at the time, and which was a good camera, and the cameras are even better now. And then the lighting, I can't remember if I had these, but a simple box light that you get off Amazon, no brand, special brand. And at the start, back here, it was a white wall, and I think a part of a whiteboard. And I don't think it was that great, but it was always facing into this corner, and it would slowly get better and better. I don't know. I think maybe I had this bookshelf back here. Maybe there was some stuff on it. I'd have to look back at the videos. But then as you progress, you start to learn or see another video, be like, oh, I like that person's background. Maybe I'll add a little lightning bolt back there. This literally, again, I'm not the design guy, and it was like little additions to make it better and better. The camera went from an iPhone after probably the first 6 months or so to an old 10-year-old Canon EOS T5i is what it was. That's still right here, actually, but I don't use it. And then that lasted for about a year. And then we bought a Sony A6400, which helps with this kind of blurry background ease. It makes it feel like you're closer together in the room versus that's at least what a camera person told me. And it was a good tactic. So I bought it. That's what it is now. Sony A6400 on a tripod. The teleprompter used to be a Parrot prompter, which was $100. And I had an old iPhone and I use an app called Teleprompter, the blue one, and I would control here and then an old iPhone up there underneath the Parrot prompter, and I would just scroll up the teleprompter using this phone. And that's how I was doing the videos. Now it is the teleprompter, which I would recommend, is an Elgato prompter. And it's actually, I'm looking at it's almost like a separate screen from my computer, but it's looking at the Zoom. You could put the script up there and just control it from your computer. So those are the big things. And then I'm trying to think if there's anything else I'm not thinking about. Audio,
Okay.
Shure MV7 mic, which is the newest edition. For a while, I'd look at comments and be like, oh, your audio stinks, or you keep cutting out, or like you'd expect on YouTube videos. And I took that as, okay, that's good feedback. So what's the next thing I need to improve for the video?
Let's talk about the lead to client process. So you mentioned earlier that you've got a lot more leads than you can process. You need more financial advisors on the team. But when someone does reach out to you, what do you do? And I've got your website pulled up here. I think we can go to that. So if it's helpful, maybe you can walk me through what happens when you get a lead and how your website is designed to handle that.
Yeah. Again, I like going back to when we weren't that successful, when we had 1 to 2 people a week reaching out. It was the how much do I need to retire quiz that was the main source of new business. So that was someone would take the quiz, I'd get it, send them a video, and then they'd set up an intro call. Once we started getting more popular, then we had to get more selective and narrow the gates a little bit, and we couldn't do the personal video right away for people. So it went to when they click on the Get Started button, they're answering questions, and maybe there's 7 or 8 questions there, and they are automatically going into HubSpot, and then HubSpot is segmenting them based on what they said. And they are people who are not a fit. They're getting referred to other advisors out there, people that we know, or just other firms, or hourly. One of the questions is, are you looking for an ongoing relationship? Are you a DIY and you just want a one-time plan, or are you not really sure yet? For people who are certain that they're DIY and they just want a one-time plan, we'll refer them to someone who's good with one-time plans. And because we've had to stop doing that again, because of capacity issues. We can't do that anymore. So the ones who are fits, then they'll get an email, which is the same email from Luke or Sean, to set up the first meeting, the intro call. And it's all being tracked in HubSpot. HubSpot is a great software to see where people are and what they're viewing and what they're looking at. That's the process right now. And then we'll have an intro call, which is a phone call. And we've got our template and system and questions that help us connect quickly and focus on a lot of the non-financial stuff early. And then the next meeting is a one-page plan. We've got our own retirement one-page plan. It's different than, it's a combination of many different people's one-page plan probably, but it's geared towards increasing our value and communicating our value so that it's clear what we're doing is more valuable than what the fee is to work with us. So after 2 meetings, some people are ready to go and work together. Some need a logistics meeting where we focus a little bit more on the investment side of things and look at what their investment plan will be. But that second meeting, the one-page plan meeting, it is one-page plan, and then we'll look at an e-money scenario and walk through the income plan with them. So that's the whole process. And let me know if I missed something there.
Yeah. And as far as if you get 100 leads, let's say 100 qualified leads, walk through some of the metrics there. Like we get 100 leads, and of those 100, maybe 20 turn into a first meeting, and of the 21st meetings, blah, blah, blah. Do you keep track of it in that sense?
I'm going to go for one advisor who gets 50 split in 2. So they'll have 10 ideal prospective clients out of those 50. they might send out 15. And a lot of people would say YouTube wouldn't have high net worth people reaching out. They're not watching videos on retirement planning. They've got it all figured out. There's people with 5 million, with 10 million, with 20 million plus. There's people selling businesses for tens of millions of dollars that reach out to us and say, I like the way. Again, it's they connect, they like personality, and they connect and they say, I wanted to talk to you about it. So they're really quality. I'd say 10 to 15 are above 2 million. I'd have to look at the data, and then we'll talk to them. And I believe the breakdown now might be out of 5 intro calls, it might go to 2 or 3 one-page plans are offered, and then one of those people will become a client. And that's without me in the meeting. When I was involved in the meeting, it was a little bit better, but Luke and Sean are doing this and they're growing pretty rapidly.
Are you saying that if you had 50 leads that came in, now obviously not all those are qualified, but out of 50 leads that come in, one might ultimately shake out as an ideal client that comes on board?
Out of 50, we're sending 10 to 15 emails out to invite to an intro call. Those 50 leads, let's say 10, they get an email and say, you're invited to an intro call. Half of those people will show up, so 5, and then out of those 5, 3 will get a one-page plan, and then 1 will become a client. So if you look at 10 to 15 possibles, get an email, and then the 5 that we talk to, 1 will become a client.
So 1 out of 50 in total, but knowing that probably
just leads.
Yeah. So like 35 of those 50 were not qualified. You didn't really invite them in. So if you had 100 leads that come in from YouTube, probably 2 of those ultimately become a client. So really we're looking at, let's call it a 2% conversion rate, to put it in some marketing terms here, out of all the leads that come in. Sounds like that's about right. Yeah.
Yeah. And if we were to grow, if we were to hire, again, we're turning away so many people, it would look different, but because we have to be so selective, then it's a lot less.
And did you say your minimum's 2 million? Are you turning away anyone that has less than 2 million in the form?
So if it is a referral from a current client, we will help them. And there's another advisor that can help them if they're right fit. So they could have less, but if it's usually 1.5 and below, automatically through HubSpot, they're being sent to a different advisor right away. So
you could actually have much higher close rates if, say, your minimum was 1 million or say 750,000. You'd probably be closing a lot more people. But again, just because you want your minimum to be where it is, and you don't have the advisor staff to support it, so it's essentially, let's call it 2% conversion. But those are people that are $1.5 million or more, which is pretty healthy.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, Dave, let me wrap up here with just a handful of maybe a little bit more creative questions. Okay. So let's just say that you could collaborate with any other non-financial YouTuber out there. So what other YouTuber would you want to collaborate, and how would you connect what they're doing in their non-financial YouTube channel to what you're doing on the financial side? And what sort of point would you want to emphasize with that type of collaboration?
Oh, that's a good question. I've never thought about the non-financial. The first thing that pops in my mind, and he's not a YouTuber. He's actually, he does have a YouTube channel, but he's a professor at Harvard and he's an author, and it's Arthur C. Brooks. And he's got some great books on strength to strength and kind of purpose and meaning after retirement. That's a big piece of what we help clients with, thinking about what this next stage is going to be and how to keep using your strengths to even help other people and gain fulfillment in retirement. So that was the first person that stuck out. But for
so you mentioned people, Mr. Beast earlier. So let's just throw him out. Let's say that you and Mr. Beast were going to do a collaboration. What would you want to do with him?
I wouldn't want to do that, but
probably a different
I'd like
demographic.
to keep my hand on a car as long as I could on a Ferrari and win the Ferrari. No, it would be a waste, even if we did a video and it got 1 million views.
Let me throw another one at you here. So you're filming these videos in your office there, your nice office. Let's say that you were going to create a series of 3 videos, but they were going to be in dream locations anywhere in the world. So what would those three locations be, and how would the location enhance the financial message that you want to deliver?
This plays into YouTube, meaning that a video outside with a changing backdrop will keep someone's attention more than a static background like this. And that's a proven thing because, again, you hear about you want to change the scene and keep people engaged, and how movies change every 3 to 5 seconds to keep someone engaged. Walking background, a beautiful background. The first thing I thought of was a ocean view behind me. And part of this is selfish, going to Costa Rica to surf and doing a video while I'm there. For the main, how would I relate it to retirement, to financial? I think it would just be that idea of deciding ahead of time. It would be around the three triangles that I've talked about before, where when you're young, you have no money, but you have a lot of time and you got your health. When you're middle, probably where I am, your time is crunched because you got family stuff, you got work stuff, you got your health and maybe some money, but time is really crunched. And then when you get to this perfect equilateral triangle where you have time, money, and health, maybe in your 50s, use that, because then when you get into your 70s, the health part starts to noticeably shrink a little bit, but you have all the time and you have all the money. So I would say I would make a video about that, about deciding ahead of time, when is the right time? What are you going to do? Purpose in retirement, something like that. Oh, here, it's just coming to me. It would be around your identity is a lot tied to work in your 40s and 50s. And there's a certain percentage, like how would you label what percentage of your identity is a financial advisor or YouTube financial advisor? What would I put there? How would I label that? What about my identity as a surfer? I like hanging out with people who have that surf mentality, who enjoy nature and all of that. And part of my identity is a surfer. What percentage is that? I could look at my calendar and decide that quickly. So I think what is your identity going to be as you move from work career to retirement career?
Let's go back in time and let's say that you can interview a historical figure on your YouTube channel about their financial situation, about their financial habits, about their financial decision making. So someone who is not alive today, which historical figure would you want to interview, and what would be one of the first questions that you would ask them?
I think maybe John Templeton comes to mind. He was a guy who was, can't remember the numbers, but making $2 a week or something like that, or $1 a week, and was giving away 10 cents of it. And I think his advice was, if you can't give away 10 cents of a dollar, then it's going to be a lot harder to give away 10,000 of 100 or a million out of 10 million. So he had some interesting thoughts around generosity and money, and he's obviously did very well with in the financial arena. I think it'd be interesting to see his mindset during, I believe he was one that went to start to invest in Japan after 1945. But like the mindset of why, the long-term perspective, not getting swayed by the current affairs and all the things bombarding us on a daily basis. How do you keep that perspective? Could be helpful. We know that it's a huge mental part of this for our clients. So that's what came to mind.
John Templeton, really fascinating figure there. And I had a close brush with him back in the 1990s. I was down in the Bahamas in Nassau, and he lived there for many years. And it was a financial services event. It was with Franklin Templeton, and Templeton had sold his company to Franklin. And so it turns out that John Templeton was at this event, but he was off in a corner and nobody was made a big deal about it. And so somehow I'm at this event, John Templeton's there. I didn't even know it. And I missed my one chance to meet John Templeton. And of course, he has since passed a number of years ago. But one of his quotes that I'll always remember, and this ties in with what you just said here a moment ago about him, was he was asked one time, what was the greatest investment he ever made? And of course, everyone's thinking like, oh, it was investing in Japan, like right after World War II or something like that. And he said, the best investment I ever made was tithing, because every dollar that I tithe, I got $10 back. And so that that insight has always stuck with me. And it's just an example of the kind of generous human being that John Templeton was.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Let's finish with two final things. So I'm going to ask you one question, and then I'm going to give you an opportunity to share a final thought. So since we talked about going to the past, let's go to the future. Let's flash forward, say 50 years, and you've got this huge library of YouTube videos. What would you want your legacy to be as it relates to all this content that you're creating? Is there any insight or maybe one central message that you would like people to take away from everything that you're creating here on YouTube?
Man, being an introvert, these questions would have been great to think about. I need some alone time to think about these. These are great questions, Steve. So 50 years from now, there's a lot of content out there. I think it would be related to,
So people will know I did not give you these questions in advance.
yeah, yeah. I think it would have to do with something related to purpose and meaning around what you're doing, because we do so many things. For financial component is a part of many of the things that we do for good reason. We want to send our kids to private school or do experiences, have experiences with them, or whatever it might be. So there's a lot of financial goals, but I think it might be, again, our audience is mainly that transition of stopping the career to doing something next. I guess the message, so much could change over the next 50 years, but the message for right now is that it's could be the best time of your life and the most filling, and you have all this stuff to look forward to. And if you do a little bit of self-reflection and think about the most important stuff in your life and try to do that Kaizen type focus of what do you love doing? What are you good at? And then what does the world need? And finding the intersection of those, because there's so much worry in the world and all these, what are the things that break your heart? There's an impact we can have. I guess the message is there's a big impact we can have on the world or just like individuals' lives if we just figure out what it is and then spend a little bit of time trying to help that thing. So figure out what breaks your heart and then work a little bit towards trying to alleviate that for one person.
All right, Dave, any final word here as we wrap up? What's the best way for folks to connect with you as well?
Yeah, go to Streamline My Practice. Oh, you know what I never said on this whole thing is
You've got a
I've got a
second
YouTube
business, I
channel.
think, out there too to help advisors, right?
Yeah, streamlinemypractice.com/academy. That's where we're putting all of the parts of an advisory business in training, ongoing training that's launching in the next month or so. And it's really the how do I get the strategy right for the business? How do I attract people? So it's all the marketing. Where actually, I mentioned Ron Bullis. Paid marketing is his thing. Content marketing is my thing. We're sharing all the secrets that we have and the actual templates and how to do it. And then how do you turn a prospect into a client through communication and sharing value above what your cost and fee is? And then how do you keep those people happy forever, clients happy forever, ongoing service matrix and all of that. So that's a big thing we've been working on and getting together. So streamlinemypractice.com/academy to sign up for the waitlist there.
Terrific. Dave, really appreciate you being on the show today.
It was great. Thank you, Steve. It was wonderful.